And I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go to him." Well, Thomas, who is called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." And so he's aware of what he's about to do, and he's pleased because this will strengthen their faith. One of the things that we learn is faith is developed over time through experience. And he wants to give them the opportunity to grow and to understand these things. But you know Thomas, we read of Thomas. As a matter of fact, he's got a nickname. What is he called? Doubting Thomas? Yet as I look here in verse 16, I can't help but admire him, because notice what Thomas says. Thomas says, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." This is a man that I think has a lot of courage. He doesn't necessarily have all the information yet. As a matter of fact, you're going to see something later on when he does deny the Lord. In the sense of, unless I see the wounds in his hands and in his side, I will not believe. He has that time of losing faith, if you will. But there's a strength in him too, because he says, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." You see, Jesus had said in Luke chapter 9, verse 23, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me." And that's what Thomas is doing. He's saying, listen, if the master is going back and is going to meet with his death, I will go with him, and I will die alongside of him. Well, verse 17, when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had joined the women around Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." And Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? And so I'm going to try and move in a moment here into some basic application as we look at this. There are a couple of things that I want to show you here, though. Notice verse 17. Notice how it says, when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, there is a reason why Jesus Christ delayed. There's a reason why he didn't move immediately. And part of that reason is because he wanted Lazarus to be in the tomb for 4 days. And there's a reason for that. There was a Jewish belief during the time of Christ that the soul would visit the tomb for 3 days in hopes of re-entering the body. On the 4th day, it would see decomposition and leave. Death was irreversible. One of the things that we as Christians, and this is something I want to speak to you about for a few moments, there's something about our faith that we need to understand. We don't believe in myths, and we do not believe in fables, and we are not superstitious. Christian faith is something that is based on something that is beyond stories or made-up things. Recently, I wrote a letter to the editor. It was published in the Orange County Register. It related to the marriage, the legalization of homosexual marriages and all, and I wrote concerning some things about that and got some response. And one of the responses I got was a personal email from somebody, a homosexual out of Orange County, who wanted to take issue with me and the things that I presented in that particular letter. And so he wrote to me and in essence was saying, you as a pastor are supposed to be a godly man, and yet you are teaching people things that just aren't factual. And I wrote back to him and I said, the one thing that you don't understand is the Christian faith is a factual faith. We are holding fast to a historically accurate presentation of events that took place 2,000 years ago, and therefore I do not teach my church things that relate to just superstitious mythology. We have what is called a reasonable faith. And that's what you hold fast to. My faith is not based on my emotions. My faith is not based on my feelings. My faith is based on facts. So my faith based on facts can produce feelings, but my feelings are not to go first. My feelings come last. When I first got saved, I was saved by my faith. and by facts, not my feelings. Because if it was by my feelings that I was saved, then I'd be unsaved half the time, because sometimes I just don't feel saved. I don't know about you, but when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel anything. And being saved isn't one of those things I'm feeling at that moment. And so I'm not one who wants to go by my feelings. There are times that I can feel real saved because I'm doing something like this. I feel real saved. And there are other times that I may not feel real saved at all. It's based on a fact, not a feeling. I've mentioned this to you before. It's a true story. When Marie and I got married, I received a letter from the state of California about 2 or 3 months after we got married. And it stated the marriage license had never been registered. It never was sent in so that it could be registered. When you get married and you have a wedding license, a marriage license, that's a legal document. And it has to be sent in so that it can be recorded. Well, my brother, who was my best man, never sent our wedding license in. And so I got a letter from the state of California saying that you are not legally married because your wedding license has not been recorded. And I took that letter to Marie. And I said, Marie, we're not married. I'm going out with the guys. I'll see you later, baby. It didn't work. And so we had to get in touch with the state. We had to send that license in, and then they were able to backdate it so that our marriage was actually recognized. But you know what? It's a funny thing, because when we got married, the day we got married, and then we left and went to our honeymoon, the next morning as I woke up, on our honeymoon, the day after we got married, I did not feel married. I was still happy. No, I didn't feel married, I didn't know what it was supposed to feel like. I mean, what is marriage supposed to feel like? I've discovered since then what it feels like. But at that moment, and I was right, I wasn't married, for 3 months until, I got that letter from the state saying you have to re-register. And so the bottom line is that the facts have to go before the feelings. The facts have to go before the feelings. And as a Christian, we hold fast to those things that have been accurately given to us. It's what the Apostle Peter says in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 16, when he said, we did not follow cunningly devised fables when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but were eyewitnesses of His majesty. We are not giving to you cunningly devised fables. We are not teaching you myths. We're not giving to you stories. Christianity is something that you can look at and validate through historic references, and that's what we believe in. And so Jesus is dealing with something here. You see, there was a Jewish superstition that the soul would hover by the dead body for 3 days and try and re-enter, but by the 4th day, when it started decomposing, then it would realize that death was complete and therefore would leave. Well, Jesus stayed there those extra days and then took the journey so that when He arrived, the 4 days had transpired. So when this miracle happens, everybody will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that something beyond belief has actually taken place. And so that's what's taken place here in this story. Now it says in verse 19, many of the Jews had joined the women around Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met Him. But Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd have been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to Him, I know that He will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. But Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Now it's interesting how Martha has kind of a faith for the past, because she says in verse 21, if you'd have been here, my brother would not have died. She even has a kind of faith for the future, because in verse 24 she says, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. I can believe your word states certain things in the past, and I can also believe that these things will come to pass by and by. But her real problem is that she's not taking God at His word to the deepest part of her life. And you'll see this in just a moment. Because she even seems to indicate for just a moment that she has a present faith, but in reality it's not true. Because in verse 22 she says, even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. But that is not really a truthful statement.